Hello, everybody, and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona podcast where we play through Persona 3 Reload in real time along with the in-game calendar dates. I'm one of your hosts, Tom Marks, joined as always by Jonathon Dornbush. Jonathon, how are you?
Disappointed that we have such a slow week after so much story last week to discuss that, we're just kind of going back into a lull. It's really disappointing, but we'll make it through.
Well, it is summer vacation, so...
You don't do any... I mean, hey, I do like that the summer vacation doesn't last to the point where you're like, okay, I'm actually kind of ready to go back to school. August 20th, August 25th, I was always like, I'm ready for school now, actually. But no, this is a good truncated vacation that we have a lot to discuss. I'm very interested to hear all your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a wild one. And we will get into all of it. But before we do, we're going to shout out the people that make this show possible. That's right. If you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/takeyourtime. And the folk that are backing at the Palace Ruler tier, the highest tier, we like to give them a special shout out every week because it really, really means a lot to us that you care, that you really like us. You really like us. So
feed our egos.
Yes, exactly. No, those folk are, of course, Akechi is a Jelly Bean, Astral Clock Tower, Brody S, Cameron C, Dallas, Damon, Dan F, Danimal Lover 01, Default Titus, Dexter, Goro Akechi, Keegan H, Michael V, Philip S, Programmer Sid, Sam K, Sarah M, Shade, Willie Wang Wang, and Zachary L. We really appreciate all the support. And even if you're not supporting, we appreciate you very much, and we love to hear from you in comments or wherever you would like to get in touch with us. Other housekeeping. I had a very weird pop quiz last week, and I'd like to hear what people had to say about it. So the question was, to recap, was that when there's the takoyaki person in Iwatodai Station, or not station, but Iwatodai, like the shopping mall. And you can get a really good glimpse when you do this Elizabeth hangout session there of what the takoyaki mascot is holding on the sign in front of the takoyaki person. So I asked, what is she holding in her two hands, this little octopus lady? Did we get any guesses, Jonathan?
Tom, we did. I didn't remember this. And unfortunately, I couldn't go back this week, so I wasn't sure if I would be correct. However, Hannah over at the Patreon and Atomic over on YouTube both answered the same. So okay. I will either assume they're right or having a really weird group hallucination. Their answer was a gun.
That is half of the answer, yes.
Okay. We everyone else, both of them weirdly, we're not sure about the other half though. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That is correct, and it is the more notable one. This takoyaki lady is holding in her right hand a gun, and in the left hand, a cocktail glass. Why?
Because
I could not tell you.
It's definitely a great combo to advertise for takoyaki.
This is one of those things in video games that's not important at all, and I would love to know how it happened. I want that story.
Yeah, because it doesn't relate to the thing at all. And what a party animal it means that octopus is.
It's incredible.
Like the life of mystery and thrills that they lead. I want to play that game.
You can go and check out that sign if you want to see it. Literally, I was in this conversation, and I stopped the conversation because I had it on autoplay, and I stopped the conversation and went, is that a gun? Is that octopus holding a gun? And it's so small, I had to get up from the couch and go to the TV and confirm that, yeah, it is.
Incredible. Well, you can also go and check out my octopus with a gun fan fiction if you want to learn more.
Oh, I wish that was a thing.
We'll see if I'm free this weekend. But anyway.
Jonathan, before we get into it, did we have any comments for this week to dig into?
We did. Just wanted to mention a couple from over at the Patreon, jumping off of our conversation last week. Hannah, who wrote in for the pop quiz, did say, as you talked a bit about Oracle, I thought I'd share that while Reload changed it to always be positive effects, in previous versions of P3, Oracle would occasionally trigger Fuka to attack the whole party and reduce everyone's health to 1 HP. It was simultaneously hilarious and frustrating to watch Fuka destroy your whole party mid-boss fight like that, which really feels like it's on the line of your insta-kill attacks. But it's a party member.
I kind of respect it more because it's just so weird, rather than just like you die. But at the same time, I mean, I guess the idea of that is like D&D critical failure sort of thing.
I was literally going to say it's like that, or like Wild Magic, where like just once, like 1 out of 100, she rolls and destroys the world is kind of the...
You know, every time I think I have a grasp of why Shin Megami Tensei has this reputation as the brutally difficult RPG series, I hear something like this, or like the thing about how the party members would get too tired and leave you, and I go, oh, it's worse than I thought. And not worse in like a derogatory sense, just like in a, it's even more severe than I thought.
The levels of, pain that they apparently inflicted on people in the past. No bounds.
Yeah. I'm very glad that Persona could carve its space out as realizing that it didn't need to be all of that when Shin Megami was still going.
Yes, that's very fair. Moving on from there, Dan also wrote and said, on the topic of music, for me, P5 probably has the stronger soundtrack on average, but P3 has higher highs. I also find the P3 songs they updated for Reload aren't quite as good as the originals. They just feel a little less hard, I guess. And to be fair, I have not gone back and listened to the original soundtrack, so I can't compare just yet. But
yeah, it's always interesting when like a remake or a remaster or whatever updates music, because I feel like a lot of the times music is a thing in a game that will hold up best.
Yeah.
Like, you still think of, like, classic NES and SNES soundtracks as sounding great today, right? And other games still try to emulate those sounds today. So when a game comes along and tries to update the music, it can very easily, even if they do a great job, like, the nostalgia just it cannot quite be there, and you don't prefer it because it's not the version that's bored into your brain. So I fully get that.
Same.
Or maybe you just like it on its own merits more, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
Because... yeah, music can hold up in a way that I think some other things about games don't always.
No, totally. And it's, as, you know, pointing to that dichotomy of things, obviously we don't have that experience with that one. So for me, I should go back and listen to compare, but I love this soundtrack and have no qualms, but I'm curious now how listening in retrospect to the other, I would feel about things. But yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, last but not least.
Oh,
last but not
yes,
least,
please.
and then we can move in because I know we have a lot to discuss. Dexter wrote in and said, corn. There you go. That's all the comments I have for you.
We're not doing this again.
We can't go back.
Have I told you about this show I've been watching called House MD? No. See?
I was like, Tom, we have so much to discuss. I was like, oh yeah, of course.
That's for the long-time listeners.
Yes, it is.
Let's jump into it. We are going over July 20th to 26th. It is a full 7 days, but we are offset, and that's something we're going to talk about at the end of the episode, that we're actually going to do 8 days next week so that it gets us a little bit back on the schedule that we usually would be doing. But this time, it fits very nicely this week of what we're talking about, because the first 3-4 days, whatever it is, are this summer vacation trip to Yakushima, and then the end of it is this free time gap before summer properly starts and you start getting into the track stuff, which, man, I want to talk about all of this. The first thing I want to talk about, when is summer vacation in this game? Because they're like, finals are done, let's go on vacation, and then you come back and you immediately have more school.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, now summer vacation's starting, and then some guy comes along and is like, no, you gotta go to school for another 7 days to do track. And I'm like, what? When is the actual break?
Listen, summer vacation is a state of mind at Gekukan High. It is less of a, meaningful gap of time. It is more just a vibe for everyone.
Well, we are getting into weird time shenanigans with the main plot, so maybe that's the explosion caused irreparable damage to the space-time continuum.
Who's to say? I did see a blue police box in the background at some point as well, so another doctor for us to discuss. But anyway.
Let's get into the actual week. So the July 20th opens on this anime cutscene of them on a boat, right? There's not a lot that goes on here. It's a fun little scene of just them arriving and being excited. The thing that jumped out to me is that even in this setting, Akihiko's like, yeah, I'm excited to train. It's like, dude, get a hobby.
That is his hobby.
Do something else.
When he's not fighting, he's training to fight. Live, die, repeat. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, I guess so. They get to Mitsuru's house. At first I thought it was like a fancy hotel, but no, this is just Mitsuru's home, which has maids. It is incredibly fantabulous and over the top. It kind of gives you a sense of just how rich she actually is, how affluent her family actually is. And it's severely. And that's, yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like everyone is dumbfounded, and I think you're supposed to be too, right? Like, why is she living in a dorm? You know?
She's among the commoners now back at school. Yeah, no, it's a good setup for that. I do wish, talking in retrospect of the week, I always have this thing, I think I mentioned it a few weeks back, of like, I feel weird spoiling something about the larger week, even though we're literally going to talk about it on this episode. I do wish we got to see a little bit more of the house just to get like the opulence of it. I very much get that. Probably when this game was made, limited resources to create bespoke environments, especially that are used for an hour of the game. So totally get that, totally understand, not a judgment, but it is one of those things where it's like, it's very much, there's the entryway, and then we have the other kind of like sit down area. I could very much see later on a later game would go to like 5 different rooms or something.
Yeah, or at least it would have a shot in the anime cutscene of like the outside of the house, so you can get some sort of sense of scale.
Yeah, it would be like towering above them, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's basically this scene, right? The last thing that happens is that Mitsuru's dad walks by them and sort of has like a polite but curt hello, and he's a super handsome chiseled dude with an eye patch, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, and then he's not there and we talk to him later instead.
Yeah, and then Junpei's like, let's go to the beach, and we go to the beach.
Yep, pretty much. Junpei's like, why would we wait? And you go to the beach immediately.
Yeah.
The first thing that I thought on this beach is Akihiko is wearing a Speedo and a white t-shirt, and he's just full Pooh Bear in it.
Mm-hmm.
Just full Pooh Bear in it.
Even his like stance is a little bit Pooh-ish. It's very just like, I'm just walking here. Hello, everyone.
Yeah. It's so weirdly unflattering.
Yes. I know, for a dude who's like arguably probably the most in shape of them all and the most like focused on his physique, it's very funny that he is dressed in just like don't worry about it.
Yeah. He's there to train. He's there to sweat.
That's all he needs. Whereas, yeah.
We get another cutscene. I think I know what you were going to say. Whereas, Akihiko's like, well, what if you're not training? What are you doing here? And then we get creepy Junpei.
As I wrote, Junpei horny as hell and makes them feel uncomfortable.
This is a theme. Okay, so let's just talk about this right now.
Sure.
There's an anime cutscene where he turns the girls each individually showing up into a game show announcer voice, announcing them to rate their outfits as different contestants, which is just very dumb, right, of him. And again, very fan servicey of the game.
Sure.
And all the girls kind of are like, this is stupid, you're an idiot.
Oh yeah, because I mean, the boys don't get an introductory cutscene like this. It's very much, to your point, the fan servicey side of things. Like, what's funny to me is I think there is a world where a scene like this works and could be played as fun and friendly if, one, all the girls didn't hate Junpei and he hadn't clearly shown himself to be like a creepy dude when it comes to women all the time. Like, there's a world where it is played for the laughs that it is, and it wouldn't feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it does, because Junpei is just ogling them.
Yeah. if we can talk about, so I want to talk about this real quick, but if we can talk about one of their outfits, I love that Yukari's outfit is just her normal clothes, but tiny. It's a pink, like, top and cut off jean shorts, which is literally just she wears a pink top and jeans. And so it's literally just her outfit, but everything's shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Let's talk about real quickly. Let's talk about this a little bit because this is a theme that I don't want to keep hammering on the whole week because we could be hammering on it the whole week.
Sure.
The whole vacation thing, Junpei's one bit, like the one joke of this vacation is that Junpei is horny and wants to pick up chicks, and everyone else besides him tells him how much of an asshole he is and how much of an idiot he is constantly for feeling this way, and then it keeps going. You know what I mean? Like, it's good that the game acknowledges that his behavior is sort of unacceptable and bad, but then it also keeps telling that joke. It's not like he tries to be horny and then they shoot him down and they move on. It's like they shoot him down and then they keep going and they do it again.
It's that weird thing of, like, inherently the idea of showing a character in this light doesn't inherently mean, like, isn't bad in and of itself to do, because that is just unfortunately the reality for a lot of teen boys are kind of like that.
Right.
But at the same time, I feel like because the game over relies on it, and I think because especially it is that thing that came up with P5 as well, but it's like because of that juxtaposition, it ends up being just so heteronormative of the idea of, like, the girls get the anime cutscene, the boys show up and look kind of goofy. It's fine to point out that Junpei is like that and is creepy and weird and it makes everyone uncomfortable. But then when it just keeps happening over and over, it's like, but you're enjoying that he's kind of like that, aren't you? Is how it feels sometimes. And so it becomes
it's having their cake and eating it too. It's like they want the points of being like, oh, look, we know this is bad. Ha 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 ha. Let's keep going.
Yeah, it's tough because, you know, you're especially dealing with it's that back and forth of, like, it is a thing from 15 years ago, but also some of the scene has been changed. So it's like, could you arguably have changed it? But then how much do you change where you're completely changing the character? And then what is the point of remaking that? Like, there's a lot of questions that come up with that, especially with a remake. It's something that I think especially, and if we were to go step by step through this week, we'd probably be here for 3 hours detailing just Junpei's horniness. It's one of those, like, I think it works if it was quicker and if it didn't belabor the point so much where it does.
Like, literally all 3 days are about this.
Yes.
Right? Like, every beach trip is about Junpei wanting to pick up a girl. The way you meet the new character later in the week is about Junpei wanting... Like, it's not just, like, a one-off. It is, like, every part of this vacation is framed by him, and and so, like, that's more my complaint, is not even that he is this way. It's just that it is, like, they play this joke to death.
I think if it had maybe been even, like, one less day of it wouldn't be as grating in that way, because it is that thing of, like, that is how a lot of rom-com setups go. It's like the horny guy trying to pick up chicks, and maybe, like, the friend who isn't as, like, about that life finds the girl of his dreams, or, you know, all that sort of stuff. I mean, even just, like, I think of literally Grease is, like, the T-Birds are just a bunch of horny dudes who are trying to find girls. It's, like, not that different, but it's like when it gets played up as it does, it becomes like okay, we can move on from here. So at least personally, I don't think we need to go into every single conversation in depth of Junpei's need, though I will say I enjoy some of the shutdowns that happen.
Oh, yeah. Like, this is not to say some of this isn't fun or funny. Sure. It's just, like, the overall vibe, you know? So moving on, as part of this, the conversation goes to, you know, he asks which one your type is, and you can either say one or just be like, I don't care, right?
Yeah.
Be ambivalent. And then at the end of this beach trip, you kind of just walk around, right? And you talk to people. Oh, no, that's afterwards. You get this, at first you get an uneasy feeling like someone is watching you. Yeah. But then it goes away. And obviously that's not something that is not still a mystery if you've played through the week. But then you just walk around and you pick up things for Elizabeth if you took that request, and you talk to some people, and then you just pretty quickly leave. Was there no music in this scene for you too?
Oh, that is one thing I have in general about this week. And as someone who loves the music and the scoring of this game, I think it stands out even more. I think the like sound mixing and cues in this whole sequence, the whole beach trip, is really off.
Right.
Because
it didn't feel celebratory. It just was like, okay, cool.
There was no
I guess
music
I'm leaving.
here. Yeah, there was no music here for a bit, and then also like not to go too far in, but like on the day of going around to the different groups of women, the music is like really oppressively loud and doesn't kind of let up.
I think that one is because they call it an operation.
True.
And so it's supposed to be like the intense operation music.
Yeah,
but
I just
also,
wish it kind of
it's
like
weird.
Yeah, I wish it had peaks and valleys more to it, but yeah, there's a little bit of dissonance here with all that stuff. But yeah, it is also a very funny thing where like you just kind of decide to go.
You just walk away.
The first time I played it, I was like, am I missing something? Am I supposed to be like getting into a secret conversation or something? But no, you just go.
No, you pick up some driftwood, a shell, and entire live crab, and then leave.
As you do, and then you get back home, and it's the evening. Everyone's eaten.
Yep. So you get back. You skip a dinner scene where Junpei talks about how he can't eat any more fancy caviar. He's eaten too much. And then you all go to bed, and Mitsuru stays behind to talk to her dad. And this was a really interesting conversation. I mean, I know you've played through before, but I wasn't sure what to expect from the dad. And I wasn't expecting this. He's like very, like I was expecting maybe this guy is a villain of some kind, right? And maybe he still is. I don't know. There's twists and turns in games like this, but
Sure.
Like he was very down to earth and very like, why would you hide the information about all the stuff you just told them for so long?
Yeah.
And she was like, I didn't mean to hide it. And he like goes off to say, he says, 2 in harmony surpasses 1 in perfection is their guiding principle since the Kirijo group left the Nanjo group.
I really thought those were going to be pop quiz questions. So
no,
I wrote it all down.
Those are 2 dead on.
That's fine.
But basically, we don't know what the Nanjo group is yet. Who knows? There's way too much to speculate on that for me right now. But basically, the thing I got with this is he says she should learn to trust others if she wants to succeed, right? Like he's very supportive of sort of what I would perceive as like the right things, right? Work with your team, tell them bring them into the fold, make them trust you, and you have to trust them, right? It was not what I was expecting from this guy.
I think it plays very well on your expectations because you are going into this with that expectation that at least in this moment, like to your point, you don't know the larger context, but like you are expecting him to be a bad dude. You're expecting a bit of an asshole. You have gotten Mitsuru's impression of like how much she doesn't like her father and how overbearing and oppressive he kind of is. And then he's the one who is like, yeah, I'll tell them everything. We don't need to go snooping around at the back end of the computer system. We don't need to conceal this. You guys are fighting. Let's just put this all out there. And he does. And
right.
it is a refreshing thing. And I think a very interesting, pretty insightful commentary on like the relationships between parents and children of like whether like right or wrong of how she feels. I'm sure there are plenty of valid reasons to it, but it also shows that it's not like one dimensional of a relationship here or a personality here, which I like. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And as you said, he knows that she's been snooping around the database and says, all right, let's just tell him everything. And so you gather everyone, and he reveals that Mitsuru's grandfather was trying to harness shadow powers to create a time manipulation device. And that the kind of implications here are that he was trying to do this for good, and then he says he strayed from his goals and got very sort of obsessive about it, and presumably was starting to go towards evil, as we also see in the video that gets played right after. And that video is an anime cutscene of Takeba's dad. It's Yukari's dad condemning the project, saying it was all his fault, even though another kind of point towards the Mitsuru's dad is that he says it absolutely wasn't your father's fault afterwards, right? He says it was completely the Kirijo's group's fault. He just we made him do this and he took the blame and he shouldn't have, which is another sort of like stand-up thing that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And then he also talks about how the shadows need to be destroyed. Yukari is very upset, obviously. She thinks that Mitsuru knew. We kind of already assumed, if you put the pieces together, that her dad was the head researcher who died mysteriously 10 years ago from that note. And she runs off. This is an interesting reveal. It's cool that we get it this way, but it happened sooner than I was expecting, maybe. I knew it was going to happen, but just like... Yeah, it's a little quicker than I thought.
Things are moving now. We're really ramping up, I think, the kind of lore that we've been getting so far. So I do like that it continues here. But yeah, to your point, that was, I think, a well-seeded reveal, even if it's not the most shocking to us, because of, one, that letter, two, Ikutsuki even talking about, like, oh, someone took the fall because they needed a scapegoat, and then her father talking about how, like, that was kind of what was going on there. Yeah, I think it's a well-done scene that is more important as a reveal for that character, even if it's not mind-blowing to the player, and that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. It needed to happen. Mm-hmm. So Mitsuru asks you to go after Yukari and talk to her, make sure that she's okay, right? And you get this beach scene with Yukari that is very emotional and very, very good. It's also a little bit... like just a little bit confusing. I know I keep saying that this week, but like the timeline of stuff is a little odd here because Yukari says that she always believed her father was good, and people were really mean to her and her mom because they knew that he was this researcher lead, right? And so they had to move a lot because people would harass them or whatever. And so like this is the point where I was like, wait, so Yukari knew he was this researcher in this accident when she was younger. So, like, how much about the Kirijo group and his work did she already know is, like, sort of not really clear because clearly she knew something that she knew he was involved in this to some degree, right? But, yeah, it's all just, like, a little complex or a little weird to me. But
sure.
The structure of it is interesting. I like that she's tied into this, and I like that she has a motivation for wanting to be part of S.E.E.S. Beyond just I got told I had to be.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I think at least right now the way I take, especially the last few weeks of the game, is very much a like she probably had some understanding when she was younger, but again, she was 10 years younger, so she was what, 6 or 7 or whatever, and so
right.
She. Now that she's a little bit older and now that she is fully embroiled in stuff related to things, I think she is just taking more of a proactive young adult interest in this stuff that a child who especially is moving around and trying to figure out life with a single parent, all that sort of stuff, might not be in the like right headspace to dive into that stuff fully is kind of how I take it. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all fair. So she says she agreed to fight for S.E.E.S specifically to find out what happened to him, and now she kind of knows. She also has a moment that I think is interesting where she says part of the reason she's kind of like been angry at Mitsuru is that she's like mad or she's jealous that her father got to live, right? Which is like really sad. And then you try to comfort her. I don't know if this scene always plays out the same way, but you can try to comfort her and then she like shouts at you that you don't know her, right?
Yeah.
She's
I got
like,
that too.
So you can kind of get over personal, but she says she's just like sad and lost and afraid and doesn't know what she's doing anymore because she's learned the truth and it's heartbreaking. It is.
I think she is a very, I think of all the characters right now, the one who has like the most personal ties to what's going on outside of Mitsuru, but who has the most like emotional stake in it. Because of this mystery, whereas like at least Mitsuru has been on the inside to a certain degree throughout all this time, so she has had some awareness there, but this is all really hitting her fresh for the first time, and so I appreciate how raw the emotions are as a result of that. And then you play it cool, and you're just a calm, chill, and collected friend, or you're dismissive, I think you can be a little bit, which isn't the nicest. Or you could be nice and give her a hug.
I ain't getting any points for this. I can do whatever I want.
So you just were like, snap out of it. And
no, I hugged her.
Yeah.
The hug, I Googled first to see if the hug meant I was starting a relationship.
It's a good call. Yeah,
because
because it
that's
does
a thing
feel
a
that way.
Persona game would do.
Yep. You give a hug and then suddenly just the choir starts playing and you're like, oh no, I didn't mean it.
Yeah.
It's too early in the game.
So the hug is just sort of a symbolic thing you can do to make her feel better. Then Junpei shows up and goes, hey, and I don't really remember what Junpei says. He's just like, hey, everyone's looking for you.
Yeah, that's pretty much that. He was just like, before the dark hour, we should get home. So he brings y'all home, and then, ooh, it still feels like I'm being watched. What's going on here?
There is one quote from this conversation that I really wanted to pull out, which was Yukari says this really interesting thing about having a persona, which is talking about like how she wants to do right because she has this power, right? Mm-hmm. And she says, in exchange for power, you can no longer look away from the things you don't want to see. Mm-hmm. Which is a really interesting quote to me of like her being like basically saying, because we can help, we now know that there's ways we can help, and therefore we can't ignore that anymore. And so we have the power to help, and we know we can, so we can't just pretend we don't anymore.
If I may, it's the most Phantom Thieves-y kind of expression of what they're doing. It is the most like righteous, we need to do this because we have the ability, we have the power, we're going to fight for good. I'm going to send my calling card out and we're going to stop these shadows. But no, yeah, it's a very thoughtful perspective.
It was one of the first, not the first, I don't mean to say that, but it was a very clear sort of like, oh, this game is starting to have, to use a writing term, a thesis, right? It's starting to make some really clear points about like the messages it wants to send, right? And I think that, so I appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next day, this is the 21st now, the evening ends, you jump to the woods with Mitsuru, Yukari, and Fuka are walking around the woods together, and it's awkward.
Fuka's really trying to be like, isn't it interesting to be out here in the woods? Oh, what a time we're having. And the other two of them are just like, oh. Yeah.
Akutsuki calls to break the tension and says that some sort of anti-shadow weapon that they thought was inoperable suddenly activated and left the island lab. By the way, there's an island lab here. And that they got to go find it and they have to stop it. And she says, we can destroy it. And he goes, no, you can't. Which I think is very funny. That he's like, you're not going to be able to do that.
No, that's silly. I do like that he calls it, I think I wrote down specifically, an anti-shadow combat vehicle.
Yeah.
Which I wish
they
stood
think it's
for
a
something,
tank.
but yeah, they assume it's an actual vehicle.
Yeah. Cut to the boys at the beach. And what shenanigans are they getting up to? Because the girls aren't there.
Hitting on the ladies.
They're trying to pick up chicks.
Yeah, I do. It's really funny. On one hand, I'm like, there's a lot of scenes or elements of these scenes we can go into. On the other hand, I'm like, that'll probably take me 2 hours because I wrote down almost every line of dialogue just in case you asked a question in the pop quiz. But yes, they have this.
Joke's on you. My pop quiz is not a line of dialogue this week.
Of course. I thought you were going to be like, joke's on you. My pop quiz comes from the beginning of the game.
I did appreciate that they specifically blame Junpei for the girls not being there today.
Yes.
They specifically are like, dude, you were being weird yesterday. Of course they're not here.
Yeah. No, I did appreciate that. And then, but he's like, well, I want romance. So it's time for the Operation Yakushima beach fling.
Yep.
And they get going. They have the most awkward conversations I've heard in quite some time.
Yeah, pretty much. So they do. This is this 3-phase hitting on girls, right? And sort of just being bad at it. And it's, again, like I said earlier, it's sort of the same joke over and over of they're trying to pick up chicks, but none of them are suave or good at it. And my favorite was picking all the dialogue options that were the absolute worst to just really sabotage the whole thing.
Yeah, I do appreciate that is that sensation of like, they are so bad at this.
Yes.
At every step, and including I do appreciate, obviously Junpei would be bad at this, but also the fact that Akihiko, the boxing star, beloved by girls, like we know people fawn over him, he does not know how to talk to a woman. He genuinely does not know how to hold a conversation whatsoever, and it's very funny.
Yeah, so the first group just sort of blows you off. The second group starts kind of teasing you and acting like they're interested, but they both have boyfriends and they're actually just messing with you. And then the third one we should talk about because I think this is the thing that changed in Reload, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
So this was this scene where there's a woman who's talking in a very sultry voice and she is sort of like acting like she wants to get picked up by you, and then she tells you that the sun is actually fake because it's been replaced, and she tries to sell you fancy sunscreen for it, and then you run away. And I believe this is the scene where in the original game this woman was trans, and then they find that out and run away in horror. And everyone was like, that's up for, excuse my language.
I think it's appropriate. Yeah, no, it was a pretty hugely transphobic, and I remember watching it just to get an understanding of the context beforehand. I would point people to, there's a really good piece from Kenneth Shepard over on Kotaku that goes through the changes and breaks it all down that I think is really worth reading. But yeah, it's obviously... Thank the heavens they chose to address that here, because obviously there is whether or not they did it well, we could talk about that, but obviously I think like the idea that would still be in this game in the year 2024 would be absolutely wild.
We talked about this a little bit with Persona 5, kind of had a similar, not exact same, but similar sort of gay panic thing that they tried to change for Royal, right?
Yeah.
Again, I said this, I think, a week or two ago when we were talking about On, but two cis dudes are not exactly the authorities to be talking about this thing. But the thing here is, like you said, it's good that it's not here. But the fact that they chose to fix a transphobic conversation by pretending, like by removing the trans character and just saying, oh, well, she's not trans anymore. And you're like, oh, I don't know if that's the right way to have fixed that, right? Because suddenly you're just it's erasure instead of phobia, and like that's not like it's, I guess, technically speaking better, but it's like there could have been ways to handle that did not just like completely change the character. Like, I don't know, it's such a small scene, it's not like a massive deal, and it was definitely bad the way it was before, so it's a very messy subject, and I'm sure there's people out there who have written on it in ways that are more authoritative than I could get into here.
For sure. I mean, yeah, I think it's fair to say as two cis, straight dudes, like we only have a certain perspective on the ramifications of how a scene impacts, obviously, the audience. I think I don't also know, though, if the game is equipped to have the nuance of a scene like that to some extent. Obviously, they very easily could have played it as it was a trans character, and that doesn't matter to them, and they are just still trying to hit on this person because they're interested in them, and let it be that. It seems like they wanted to just so move away from that it was let's just make the scene about the strangest conversation we can think of.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the road it takes.
Yeah, exactly. That is the strategy. For better or worse, that's the strategy they took with it. It goes to the boys being dejected. They start bickering about whose fault it is. They're hiding behind a rock because they're weirdos. And then they see this last girl, this beautiful woman on the pier. And you get an anime cutscene of this beautiful woman on the pier. And they rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes first. At least for me, Junpei was first.
I believe so.
Junpei goes up.
Yeah.
He's extremely shy, and it's kind of cute. He's like so shy. She says that she's looking for someone and that he is not it. Just fully blows him off. He walks away sad. Akihiko tries talking about training in the ocean, and she says, I don't care. And he leaves. And then you go up, and she says she recognizes you. And then sees the other boys and was like, oh, I have to confirm your identity where there is no one here. And anime runs, that like Naruto ninja run with the arms behind her,
Yep.
into the woods. So Junpei says you have to go chase after her and apologize. So you proceed to chase a woman into the woods that you don't know who just ran away from you.
And who keeps running.
Yeah, who keeps running. Not like the greatest move. And you proceed up this forest path. For the love of God, game, it's a straight line. You do not have to stop me every 10 feet and reframe the camera. I'm not getting lost chasing her.
We could have just had one sequence and it would have been okay. Yeah, I was like, I don't need to go. It felt, I swear it added a time this playthrough. Because I didn't remember it being so many times it would make you run 3 steps and then stop you and reframe. I was like, oh, okay.
So weird.
There must have been a technical reason for it, or just like the belief and indication that it was causing this idea that, wow, we're really getting deep into the forest, I assume is kind of what it was going for.
Yeah, I mean, there's no levels bigger than like one of the sections that you run through, so maybe each one of these things is like a little bit of a fake loading screen or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyway, you eventually get to a big tree and a sign that she's hiding behind.
Yes, and she jumps out. She says she recognizes you, she hugs you, and says that her primary objective, her priority, is to be at your side at all times. Then the girls in Akutsuki show up. And Akutsuki says, oh, yeah, that's the thing. That's the murder machine that we were trying to find. Her name is Aegis.
Aegis.
And you go, Aegis, excuse me.
I'm going to catch you. How dare you?
Aegis. I'm going to have to, I'll get it.
It takes some, I was saying, before they said her name in the game, I was saying Aegis to myself for weeks. So I totally get it.
Cool. Well, then I'll blame you.
Fair enough. I incepted into your brain. But yeah, we've met the murder machine.
Yes. So you go back to the house, and Akutsuki explains that she's a robot designed to kill shadows and is now part of your team. Hooray!
Our new team member. And speaking of, obviously we might jump around in here, but the main question we got for this week from the Patreon was Brody asking, I just want to hear the thoughts about your new team member. And yeah, we have Aegis. So what do you think?
It's so... The introduction is so shoehorned in, but I don't care because I like her. She's a really cool design. I like the idea of this robot team member. I like the idea of her sort of like learning about the world with you. I'm excited to find out more about her. It's like, the introduction is so silly, but I don't care. It's just, I enjoy who this person is and that they're with you now.
It was very much, it feels like I really like to think of it as they had Aegis, they had the idea of this cool robot companion. They were going to be part of the story. They're looking for you. And they were like, how do we reasonably get the group to meet this character? I know. We'll have them go to a summer vacation where they run into them. It's just a very funny, like, of all the places to meet them. It's a cute, very clearly, we got to get them into the game. I do really like that it's also a bit of a misdirect, because you were just meeting Ken back at school and they were like, we think he has the power, he might be able to join us even though he's young. So you're kind of being primed to be like, okay, this might be the new character I get to learn. And then they're like, actually, Aegis is part of the team now. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Akutsuki mentions that she has a persona of her own. Which, if you talk to Akutsuki back at the house in like a couple days, he mentions this very silly thing. You can ask him why she looks like a girl, and he talks about how like they had to give there are more of these robots, but the others were all destroyed or decommissioned or whatever, and they had to give them the mind of a human in order to use a persona. And if the mind of a human was put into like a literal tank, then it would go, oh, I'm not a human, and it wouldn't have the chance to get a persona, which I thought was a very funny sort of explanation. But the point here is that it's a robot with a soul is essentially what they're saying.
Yeah, I'm so glad they figured out how to create souls in this universe just like that. Yeah, it's really great. I tell me more about how that works. But Yeah, that's about the approximation I think of it as too, is basically this is a computer construct that you think of as a human, and it really helps that they look like a human.
Yeah, and the distinction here is that she hypothetically like has feelings, right? It's not just programming.
Yeah.
So she was out of commission apparently from taking lots of damage fighting shadows 10 years ago or whatever, but then suddenly reactivated, and Akutsuki still doesn't know why. You don't know why. Nobody knows why she wants to be by your side. I guess just knows. He says maybe her facial recognition thing isn't working. They don't know. So that's a mystery for later.
He's like, I don't care. We have karaoke to do. Excuse me.
Yeah, this is so this game in that it's like, here's this robot friend. We don't have any answers. Let's go do a fun thing and move on.
Yep. And then I like that it's even referenced the morning after.
Yeah.
Of just
they
like,
did karaoke all night.
Yeah. Which I think it directly kind of swings into. But
yeah, 22nd, it directly swings into that. They're back at the beach. Junpei wants to go swimming. This is a very cute moment, and this made me very optimistic for this character too, because Junpei says he wants to go swimming. Aiga says, yeah, let's go swimming, and runs into the ocean, and then comes back up and is like, hey, swimming's only great if it's with everybody. Everybody's got to come swimming. And suddenly I see her as this like force to heal the team a little bit, right? She's like trying to get people to bond together and bridge those gaps. For a very robotic reason. She says fun can be only done optimally if done all together, right? It's like very robotic, but it could be really good for this group.
It's very much the trope of like the AI character, the robot character who is learning to be human speaks in that structured tone, but I think the voiceover is really well done. It's a really good performance here, and conveys that really well as they demand we all go swim. And not to jump, I know there's a quick reminder from Akutsuki about the boat. I love that he's in his full suit on the beach. But I love when it cuts to them in the water and her fingers are just blasting water at Junpei. It's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they all out attack.
It's so good. I really enjoy that.
This is also a really good comeuppance kind of callback to the first beach day, which we didn't touch on, where he's splashing Fuka and Yukari, and they're like, "You're going too far, and we do not enjoy this. Can you please stop?" Yeah. And he's like, kind of being an annoying little brother about it. And then now he gets his own.
We beat up our friend.
Yeah. With water attacks.
It's cute. It's
fine.
She has 10 super soakers basically for hands. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to rank up. So your Fool rank, the S.E.E.S Team 1, ranks up to 5. So that's nice. Yes, like you said, Akutsuki says you're going to be on the boat the next day. You're going back already on the 23rd. And the 23rd actually opens. You don't even see any travel back. It opens on Shinji in the evening in the back alley, that alley area. And that creepy trio of people shows up again and gives him some pills because his chest is hurting. We're not sure what's going on there yet. He's got some sort of medical problem, and he's buying pills from these shady people.
Yeah. That's an accurate description of the scene.
I was trying to get more out of you.
Nope, you're not going to get that from me. I think I do like these check-ins again, just to kind of see multiple perspectives in the world. I do like that they're not hiding this group from us a ton. It is...
Yeah, you see them a lot.
An interesting perspective, and I really appreciate that we're seeing what they're up to, because obviously we're getting more of a sense of like they're keeping tabs on us. They talk about how like, you know, they learn about what our plan is from him, which they are not fans of. And it's we get a little bit of lore dump info here too. They call it the Tower of Demise,
right,
and all that sort of thing. You do get another name, I believe, in this scene of the three of them.
Oh yeah, I didn't write it down though.
Well, you get a name. I can tell you it, or we can wait until the next scene.
Please.
Takaya.
There we go.
So you get the name Takaya. I like that they're dripping those names out slowly. And then I think it's just a cool scene to help keep setting up the idea that they're not, you know, I think so many stories do often fail by the weakness of their antagonists and how much the games really focus on them. And I do really appreciate what they're doing here so far with this group as a antagonistic force to us. I think is really well done.
It also, them just like selling him pills also like, what's the right way to put this? It lowers their scope or scale in a way that makes me like them more. They're not just like dark hour assassins that are high level threats, right? Like they're just sort of thugs. They're super creepy, but like they're just sort of selling pills to a dude too, right? Like they're just shady generally, right?
Yes.
They're not, as far as we understand it right now, there aren't like super villains yet. They're just sort of, if you had the power of the dark hour and were a bad person, you know, which is a very different scale of enemy, and one I appreciate, one I like, that it's not this world-ending threat yet. I imagine Persona will get there. So yeah, they tell him, he tells them about that they're trying to kill the Shadow Stand, the Dark Hour, which they kind of get upset about, right? And then they kind of ask, like, if he's going to join the S.E.E.S again. He says he's not going to use his power again after, quotes, last time. So there's some good foreshadowing we get, too. And then the rest of this week is basically just free time. So you get back to the dorm, and there's your home shopping channel stuff. Akutsuki will answer more questions about Aigis, which is nice. There's some sort of simple, good lore stuff in there about her. And then what did you do for the evening? Because you get an evening.
Yeah, we have I do think it's very funny. It's a little bit unceremonious that it just throws you right back. It's like, well, you're home now. Get back to life.
This is something I was going to talk about generally, but like, that vacation kind of sucked.
It's not the best. Yeah, you spent 3 days embarrassing yourself in front of girls, chasing a girl into the forest.
It's almost all at this beach location. This is what I was saying about, like, it's one joke, right?
Yes,
it is one joke over 3 days.
But it's like, if you also think about it in the sense of the characters, it's like they get there, it's pretty emotionally fraught. Yukari has a massive emotional distress. Junpei isn't helping the situation. You go chase down this robot girl. You learn some big things. It's a very interesting couple of 3 days crammed in there.
The story stuff is all really good. The Yukari stuff especially is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's just like it wasn't very vacation-y. I was expecting a little bit more of like summer vacation, and it was like not a ton of that.
No, there's no, I guess, like beach mini game where you're. I will say this beach gives me really strong Kingdom Hearts Destiny Island vibes to a certain degree. So in the back of my head, I kept waiting to be like, I'm going to have to race someone down this beach, aren't I? It's just going to be the worst chase scene of my life, but here we go. No, so for that evening, in addition to, as you mentioned, talking to Akutsuki, getting more information from him about the Aigis situation and why she's human-like and all that, I just went to the arcade to get my charm up because I had been so focused on academics for a while. I was like, let me spread the love here. Figured that would help me out a little bit, so I did that.
Nice. I spent the night with Mutatsu. Got him up to rank 5.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Who needs a tower persona?
No.
Not me.
You'll brute force this friendship, regardless of what persona are helping you out. I appreciate it.
I will buy this old man as many drinks as it takes.
This underage child will buy this adult man as many drinks as he needs to be their friend. It's not weird at all.
Exactly. On to the 24th. You are woken up by an alarm clock named Aigis, who says, "It is morning now. You must wake up."
It's a very cute scene. I love this.
Yeah. You get a glimpse from Yukari. Yukari's looking for Aigis because nobody knows where she is. She says that they told her to stay in the command room, and she says, "No, I want to stay in your room." But the funny thing is, like, she's a robot, but Yukari is like, "Nah, the house rules say you can't have two people sleeping in the same dorm room."
Yeah, it's very. I do think it's very funny. It's a very funny. Just like, no, you guys can't be in this room together. We'll get a room for you on the next floor. Yeah.
Right. So that's established. Then you go to school, which I was very confused about because I thought we were on summer vacation, but that's fine. Junpei has this little conversation about how once they save the world, it's going to be sad that no one will know that they did it, right? No one will know. They won't get any credit for it. And then you get your exam results. Top of the class.
Top of the class.
Time
for some little treats from our friend Mitsuru, because we're good, smart little boys. Look at us. Look at us go.
And I hit charm rank 5 off of being top of the class.
Impressive. That's fun.
Yeah. So I'm now 554. Academics is the only one I'm 4 on.
I did too, and I didn't remember. It was like 2 lines down on my notes. Yeah, I did also.
That's super funny.
That's incredible timing.
So are you also now 554?
No, I think I'm 544.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you do during the day? Because we just have... Actually, tell me your day and night. Let's just rattle it off, because we have a full free day here.
And I would assume we had the same evening. I hung out with Odagiri to get him to rank 9.
Hey, we had the same day, in fact.
Nice. Look at us being synchronous.
Yeah, I got Odagiri up to 6, nice. And then the evening, Akihiko wants to hang out, so I assume you hung out with Akihiko.
It would be a real shame not to, but yes, I did. This is one of those ones, I don't know if this activity, I guess if anyone out there didn't choose to, please let us know. I don't know if this then ends up being available on a later night, if it's maybe you have 3 or 4 nights to do it. I don't know what the situation is with this, so I'd be curious to hear. But yeah.
Yeah, and this is him saying, hey, you remember that last time when we were going to go out and eat and then we didn't and almost got into a fight? This time, let's make up for it. And then you go out and you almost get in a fight and you don't eat.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Exact same thing happens.
Yeah.
But this time is sort of introspective about Akihiko specifically. He flashes back to this moment where Yukari says that, like, all you care about is that you get to fight. That's the only reason you're doing any of this, right? And then those thugs show up again and you kind of trick them and get away from them and get back to the dorm. And then there's this moment where there's a box and Akihiko is like, oh yeah, this is from my foster parents. It's a bunch of snacks. And so you call everyone together and you have a big snacky meal where you eat a bunch of stuff with the whole group. And there's a little homemade medal in the bottom of the box from his childhood. And he says he remembers his reason for fighting now.
It's very anime. I love it. Yeah. It's a cute
and then
scene.
You get some juice.
Yes, you do. And your charm improves.
Some juice. Yeah.
It's a cute scene again. I like any chance you get to learn more about these characters. I hope you take it. And this is one of those really good ones of picking up from the scenes with him and Shinji of like, what is your motivation? What are you really doing this for? Et cetera, et cetera. It's a nice
It's
cap.
growth.
Yeah.
It's the thing I really like about these sorts of scenes, and a lot of the conversations here is like the one with Yukari earlier too. It's like it's actual character growth, it's actual development of these people and like what they're going through and their mindsets changing. And absolutely, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that's the day. So let's go on to the 25th. We've got 2 more days left. In class, they tell you summer starts tomorrow.
Classic.
I don't have any clue what's going on anymore, but that's fine.
Well, hey, before that, we have a conversation, and by conversation, I mean a long diatribe from our good pal, Edogawa.
Yeah, Edogawa is the substitute teacher. He gives you a lecture about alchemy and the Philosopher's Stone and alchemists and all of that sort of thing. And then also this track coach shows up and says, hey, by the way, there's a major competition called the Miyoyo Cup, which we didn't tell you about, and it's in a week, and you have to come to school for the next week to train for it because you're the best student, even though we didn't tell you any of this. And they say there's a guy named Hayase who's a speed demon, and they really want you to beat him. This is so wild to me that they did not mention that this was going to be a thing at all until the, like, week before it. Or like a couple days before it.
Oh, your school didn't spring major competitions on you every other week? That wasn't how high school went for you?
Like, I kind of get it, because, like, functionally for the game, it does not matter
that
you didn't know.
Yes.
Right? You were going to be doing this no matter what. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. But, like, in world, it's so wild.
No, totally. I think game-wise, totally makes sense. It's fine. It keeps up the pace of, oh, there's another thing happening. Oh, I got to prepare for that, et cetera, et cetera. But then,
Right.
yeah, in world, he should have known about this at least 3 months out, probably, if not when he joined. And again, that brings me to, I don't know if this event happens for you if you join the track team or not. Because theoretically, if you don't join the track team, there's no impetus for your character to be singled out, to do this.
Is joining the track team not one of the mandatory ones?
Oh, is it? Is it? Yeah,
It might be mandatory to start that.
It might be mandatory. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
But to your point, who knows?
Anyway, well, we know now because we got to do it, and that's happening in a week. How fun.
What did you do during the day?
I hung out with Yuko and got our relationship to rank 5.
Nice. I hung out with Chihiro. Got up to 7.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. And then, before the evening, we get another scene with Shinji and that trio, who is getting more pills, I think. And they know about Igus. They've been watching you, which I was surprised about that they know about her already.
Yeah.
And they know that you have a robot hanging out with you now. And they're kind of weirdly cool about it, which is okay. Excuse me. Okay. And then they sort of reveal their evil plan, which is, oh, now that, because one of the things I praise is like, oh, these people aren't like the big bad evil villains. As soon as they see you fighting shadows, they kind of don't care. They're just curious about who you are. Now there's conflict. Now they're a villain because now they're saying, well, we benefit from the Dark Hour existing. And if these people are trying to get rid of the Dark Hour, then we have to intervene and stop them because they're not using their power the way that they should. And I love that this is the villain, or that this is a villain right now.
Yeah.
Is that it's not even technically related to the shadows or the accident or the Dark Hour existing. It's just that these people are benefiting from this thing and you're trying to stop it. And they're like, no.
Yeah. No, it's a fun angle to it. I think it really creates an interesting dichotomy between the groups. And yeah. I like this setup a lot.
I'm very curious if you're going to just fight these people with swords. Because I was thinking back on P5, and all of the fights with real people are, they're shadow versions, right?
True.
They're not, you're not actually just punching someone in the face. So I'm really curious if this is going to be like a literal fight at some point. I no spoilers. That's on my mind.
Yeah.
And then the last sort of part of this conversation is that Shinji walks away from them and they're like, hey, you're not going to go help that team now, are you? And he's like, no, I told you I'm done with them. But probably he's going to come help that team. So, yeah. Then you get back to the dorm and you get actually formally introduced to Ken, who now is living with you, I guess, and is adorable.
Yeah. Just
that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Not much to it. Just he's part of the dorm now.
Yeah. And you can kind of go around and talk to people about him or talk to him. He seems, I don't know, I have no sense of this person.
Yeah, it's too early, I think, to ask how you feel about Ken, because it's, where you've literally had 2 scenes with him.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess
I will say, I did pay a little closer attention to the menu screen in terms of looking at the figures in the start menu.
Oh.
So I have a little bit more of a sense of where he might be going.
Okay. All right.
But besides that,
yeah.
What did you do during the evening?
I figured I shouldn't fall too far behind on this, so I read the website to get the ambush ability.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah. What did you do?
I hung out with Tanaka and got him up to 5.
Nice.
So I'm now 5 with both of the evening people. Yeah. And now we're on to 6, the 26th.
Summer vacation is here.
I guess. The gift channel the shopping channel is just some gifts. It's gift items, which am I wrong? Have we not been able to use gift items yet?
I don't think there's been an opportunity. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. I assumed it would come up eventually, like it would tutorialize it in some way. But
sure. Yeah,
anyway.
I don't think there's been a thing, unless I've missed something. I don't think there has been. Yeah.
So you had already completed Maya.
Yes.
which means, so what did you do during the day?
I hung out with your favorite pal, Suimitsu. Got him to rank 3.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks. Me too.
I hung out with Maya. I got her up to 9, so
Nice.
that's almost done.
Okay.
We can talk about that one at some point. We also need to, I recognize we need to talk about
Miyamoto.
Miyamoto still, but
Yeah.
we're not going to do that today. But that's on the back burner of like when we have a slightly lighter week. We're going to definitely dig into that one, and probably Maya in the next week or 2, I'd imagine.
Feels fair. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what'd you do during the evening?
I just got my academics up and read a book with Mitsuru.
Cool.
Which I enjoy because everyone is hanging out, reading, and like talking in that area. And you basically go, you all leave. We're going to have a private hangout. But just as friends, but none of our other friends can stay here. Please leave.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that would start rumors.
It would. But anyway, we were fine. So what'd you do?
I hung out with Mutatsu and got him up to 6.
Nice.
Just
Nice.
giving that old man drinks.
As you do. Oh, I do want to also mention that did get my academics up to 5.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I think if I had spent maybe another day of academics, I would have gotten there for the pop quiz. But
Yeah, but
it's fine
you
for the
know,
exams. But yeah,
you're gonna reload 2 weeks ago.
I'm not that desperate right now. No,
You already got the best thing. Like, would 5 even have mattered?
I don't know. I just kind of wanted to prove that I could.
We didn't talk about that, actually. Getting top of the class, you talk to Mitsuru, and she gives you that charm that gives you, or the accessory that gives you +3 to all your stats, right? Which is pretty great.
It's really handy. Yeah.
And that's the week. That's it. We did it. So tomorrow starts the track thing, whatever that is. We have to start training for that. And next week's episode, we're going to be going through July 27th through August 3rd. So that's 8 days instead of 7 this time. And will get us sort of back on schedule with what we usually like doing, date-wise, at least for now.
I think.
And that'll.
I'll double check the calendar just in case it's like actually. But
I think it is. I think we were a day behind what we usually do.
Yeah.
And this will get us up. And the actual track meet is on the 2nd. So it's basically like through the track meet and then one more day.
Yes, I just more mean in case there's events in August that it would make sense to change the calendar for again. But I don't remember off the top of my head. So
yeah,
stay tuned.
We'll figure it out.
It's
I think that's all we have for the week.
It is.
Shall we close out with pop quiz?
Hit me with whatever you got.
Well, it's a simple one. I think this is if you were paying close attention, you'll know it, and if not, you won't.
Okay.
We already discussed Junpei was ranking the swimsuit outfits of each of the women in the group. But my favorite outfit was Akihiko's Pooh Bear. And his shirt says something on it. It's got text, I think on the front and the back. It says the same thing. So very simply, what does Akihiko's shirt say?
You could have done so much worse to us. I appreciate that.
Jonathan, where can people let us know where they'd like to answer?
You can answer that question just in your mind. Just think it and we'll hear it. No, you could also, if you want, go over to patreon.com/takeyourtime. You can write into dornology@gmail.com. You can head on over to the YouTube video version of the show to see our wonderful faces and comment there at youtube.com/dornology. And you can find us on social media. I'm at JM Dornbush. Tom is at Tom R. Marks. And, just whisper it into a babbling brook, and we might pick that up as well.
You have powers I did not know about.
They've only just begun, my friend.
Again, thank you, everyone. If you enjoy the show, subscribe, like, comment, do all those nice things if you'd like. We really appreciate it, and it does help more Persona fans. Don't ring the bell. Leave the bell off. It's okay.
Ba-dong. There's that bell. It got rung.
Oh my goodness.
I'm tired.
Thank you, everyone, for listening or watching. We really appreciate you. And until next time, see you around.